Discover College Soccer is brought to you by Veo. Right now, you can save big on the Veo Cam 3. Upgrade your sports recording setup and save $400 on the Veo Cam 3 when you purchase a minimum 1-year subscription and a tripod. Don't miss out on this limited time offer that ends August 31st. Shop now and capture every moment with precision and clarity. Click on the link below to get your savings. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Logan from Madison College up in Wisconsin. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks, Matt. Looking forward to being on here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. You have you now have two hats you got to wear. You are the head men's coach and the head women's coach up there at Madison. To your program. I know you just kind of took the reins of the women's program in the spring, so you haven't had that first season with them yet. But we'll kind of talk about both programs a little bit. So, let's start about the women. If you started in March or January, March timeframe, spring, whatever. How has the recruiting process been? It's even harder for two-year coaches. You got to do twice as much recruiting. So how's that been for you on the women's side?
Yeah, that was number one priority I think when taking over is make sure the roster's in a good place. We had 9 returning players after the transition from fall to spring, those that intended on playing. So got to know them a little bit through the interview process, taking over the program. They were all really eager and excited to kind of turn the page, obviously, and Matt did a great job here leading the program to a great amount of heights here. And I think those returning we're excited to continue on that tradition and hopefully build upon that. So for me, naturally got connected with the committed players that previous coach had recruited. Got them a chance to get to know me and me to get to know them. And then obviously kind of worked with the database that was already passed along to me, in addition to building my own, right? So reaching out to connections I have, to kind of figure out who's still out there. It is late, obviously, in the process, and I've quickly learned and knew that going into it that the women's recruiting game is different than the men's game, as far as timelines go, and depending upon the amount of programs, etc. So for me, I think I was eager to figure that out myself as well, right? And to dip my toe in that end of the water to figure out, what kind of team we were going to have for this fall. And I think the recruiting has come together pretty well. I'm still filling the last couple spots, but from I think the time I took over March, I think it was mid-March is my day one as head women's coach. Brought in an additional 10 of my own recruits. So we're up to, I think 21, 22-ish right now. And the most we can have is 25. So we're getting there to a full roster. We have a mandatory 1-day tryout for anyone that is non-recruited. That takes place next week. So there's a few that have signed up for that. That'll give me a chance to get to know them, evaluate them to see if they're at the level of a college soccer program and fill out our roster that way, as needed, or continue recruiting and, shaking the trees to see who's still out there, or maybe changes their mind at the last minute and wants to stay local.
Okay, awesome. Well, obviously it's junior college coaches, as folks have heard through my other interviews with they're recruiting until a month into the season,
Yeah.
sometimes depending on where they're at. But so where is it that you are doing most of your recruiting? Events, high school? You talking to club coaches? Talk to me just about your overall recruiting process and what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think the way our junior college, community college, technical college is what kind of our real name is, Madison Area Technical College. Um, the real makeup of those students are going to be within about a half hour to 45-minute drive of campus. So, my first line of duty or responsibility, I think, when taking over the women's program was reach out to every high school coach within that radius, right? And see who they know that's maybe already coming here, or who they know that doesn't know their plans yet, right? So that was a huge, point of emphasis for me when it came to recruiting on the women's side right away at that timeline. On the men's side, that's where primarily my background came from. So when I took the men's job here last April of 2023, I had already built upon a database of players I was talking to, of those that knew me, knew the type of coach I was, that sort of thing. So it was really just kind of hitting up anyone I knew at that point, And then that obviously gave me some time to build what was going to be our 2024 class here, which I feel really good about on the men's side. We were recruiting from day one last year in April of 2023 for this class. And, really finished up, I would say in February or March was kind of when we completed that recruiting class, minus one or two that were kind of on the hook that we were waiting on final answers for. But that obviously gave me some opportunity to then focus on the women's side when it came to the recruiting. So now that I'm kind of in that place now, 2025s are, what we're focusing on both sides, building upon, that radius and making sure that no player slips through the cracks of who might be a good fit at the junior college level for us, but also, casting a wide net and making sure that, people learn more and more about this opportunity. So those that maybe wouldn't consider junior college or Madison College are seeing us on social media. So for us, I think social media has become a really big recruiting tool, and just, following anyone that is within Wisconsin, because that's primarily our focus, that plays club soccer, high school soccer, and try to get them to follow us and see what we're about, and, be able to follow along our success, hopefully, come fall, and be able to showcase what we do off the field, team bonding related, that sort of thing, that can get a picture of what it would be like to be a student athlete here. That's a big thing for us, I think, is that, we want to be able to showcase who we are, and hopefully then build upon a bit of exposure to the younger crowd. As they get older, they know who Madison College soccer is, right? Whether they're a young male or female student athlete that wants to play in college, they're going to know who we are, what we do, and what the level we are, and try to give that exposure that maybe previously hasn't been there, at that level in this state.
Well, and one of the things that some junior colleges tend to sometimes do is be a place for internationals to come over and make the transition potentially into higher level universities, but they have that JUCO stop. Are international players something you guys look at, do any recruiting of?
Yeah, I would say, on the men's side, we definitely did look at that. Coming in to my experience, there's a local high school in Richland Center, which is roughly an hour or so away from our campus, that for whatever reason has been a hotbed for Brazilians to go and finish their high school experience there. And a lot of them loved Wisconsin, loved the Madison area, and want to stay local and potentially play college soccer. So we have a couple of players from that school on our men's side that naturally I inherited. We picked up a transfer from New Zealand last year that ended up being one of our top players, and a great kid that, we were lucky to have for even a year. And really just seeing kind of the mentality and experience that they bring really sparked an interest in my mind at my previous school where I was at. The international scholarships were not a thing, so we really just weren't in the market for them, and we weren't an option for them either. So here it's really an appealing thing, right? Like you said, JUCO is definitely an area where internationals maybe look to, use as a springboard to get to the higher level, cost savings as they get acclimated to the United States, things like that. So on the men's side, we have an incoming player from Denmark, Germany, and New Zealand. And then one more Brazilian from that high school nearby. So we'll have 4 new international players, but within our program, we have a player from Peru and Zimbabwe who started in January that I had recruited. And then we have a couple of those other Brazilians. So we're represented by maybe a third of our roster, having some international flavor on the men's side. On the women's side, we do not have that currently, but that's definitely an area where, I'm open to looking and, trying to bring something different to our program, our experience. But I do think that, our bread and butter is still going to be Wisconsin, still going to be within that 45-minute radius. But the balance between the both, I think, is a proper way to be successful and run a good program here.
Okay. Well, in terms of, you know, costs, I'm not holding you to hard numbers here, but I think it's always good for people to hear, what does a 2-year education cost? What are scholarship opportunities, whether they're academic or athletic,
Yeah.
and that whole kind of thing. So just give me some rough idea of what a typical student athlete might be looking at.
Yeah, so that's obviously one of the, first things I talk about when it comes to the recruiting process, where, at some schools, that's the last thing you talk about. You try to get them to fall in love with the school and then tell them what it costs, right? Here it's, it's one of those where it's definitely part of the whole process. So, if you're a Wisconsin kid, if you're in state tuition, since we're a public school here in Wisconsin, tuition is going to be roughly $4,000 a year, just over that. So it's by the credit, but that's what a full class load of credits would be, cost wise. The challenge for us is we do not have on campus housing. That is owned by the institution. So we are, actively trying to assist in giving them options to pursue if they are coming from, outside of the greater Madison area. So we have a player who I used to coach in club soccer in Milwaukee that's moving here. We have a player that's just outside the Chicago suburbs that's moving here, and then we have obviously some international players that are moving here. So that's the kind of the challenge where if you're out of state tuition, that's going to be not quite double, but just under that. I would say it's about 1.75 the cost of an in-state tuition. So that's roughly $7,000. Housing around Madison, depending upon the type of housing, how many rooms, et cetera, how close to campus or that sort of thing, right? That's a bit of a variable, but I try to say anyone who has to afford housing, in addition to out-of-state tuition, that's going to be roughly about $14,000 to $15,000 before scholarships. That includes a lower variable cost when it comes to meals. Again, that's another thing that they're not required to have any sort of meal plan on campus, that sort of thing. So that's really up to them in their budget. But then for us on the scholarship side, we are new to NJ Division II, so we are slowly building our scholarship amount. Currently only have two full scholarships available. Obviously, we split that a ton, for each program. Moving forward, the department goal is to continue to increase that and offer obviously more to be competitive within our region. For those that have been Division II longer, have more to offer. And I think the lucky part about this place is the resources are phenomenal here, the facilities are phenomenal here, and the cost is relatively low. So, Wisconsin does have its hotbed of talent here that we want to make sure that we are pursuing, but we also obviously want to make sure that we aren't, turning over stones that shouldn't be turned over, right? So I think it's an important thing that we're taking a look everywhere we can to get better and give out a proper experience here.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about the school. You've been there a little bit now, so what are some of the things that you found that are great about the school? Maybe some things that set it apart, some things we wouldn't even know by going
Yeah.
through the website.
Yeah, I would say like the biggest thing is once you're here, it feels like a large campus feel, right? So there are really updated, brand new buildings, throughout campus. Our soccer field is phenomenal. Turf, soccer only lines, lit. Our equipment room is right there, so we don't have our players lugging things across campus to utilize for training. Our athletic department is well supported. Almost every coach within our department that is head coach is full time. That's another great thing that I think that our student athletes are able to build that proper relationship by having their coach around a lot, which I didn't have previously to when I was just the part-time head men's coach. Wasn't able to be here as much as I probably would have liked. And then really, I think our location and proximity to Madison and downtown and UW Madison is definitely a draw. So we are roughly 3 to 4 miles away from the capital as well as UW Madison, and I think it's consistently rated as one of the best college towns in America. It's a really safe part of Madison. The airport is literally right next to us. So if for anyone international, or if you have things to get to or want to get away from campus and such, that's obviously really accessible. And then, like I said before, the resources are phenomenal here, right? So we have two full-time athletic specific academic advisors on campus within our department that work hand in hand, obviously, with students that know them on a deeper level, that know their academic course load and pathway to what they want to do. That's been super beneficial from my eyes in my first year of seeing that. Our athletic director's fantastic. He's been here a long time, really supportive of what we're trying to do here, and obviously pushing for us to get more and more. I think that's an important thing too. But then I think as a campus wide setting, right, there's a really good relationship between athletics and academics, personnel, business personnel. It's really definitely a cohesive place. And I think for me in my first year here, it's definitely been a positive experience in seeing that and hopefully adding to it, right? I want to do my part here to make Madison College and the athletic department the best place to be and the right place to come to for student athletes.
Awesome. Well, let's fast forward to fall, in the middle of the season. Kind of walk me through what's a typical week going to look like for a player, classes, meals, practices, game cadence, all that.
Yeah.
Men and women both. What's that going to look like?
Yep. So it'll be pretty consistent for each. So I'll give you a kind of a snapshot for the women first. So in season, once classes get rolling, that's roughly August 26th here. That'll be we'll train in the mornings before classes get going, so 6:30 to 8 a.m. So they're able to build their class schedule around that pretty easily. Naturally, all classes kick off, roughly right around 8:30. They're able to really schedule anything outside of Wednesday afternoon and evenings because that's our primary game date during the week. So our cadence is typically a Wednesday, Saturday when it comes to matches. So Monday, Tuesday would be training. Thursday, we would adjust based upon the time, the location of the Wednesday match, whether it's a recovery, a film, or if it's, if we had a midday home game, then we'll probably train as normal Thursday. Friday train, Saturday play, Sunday off. That'll be kind of our consistent week to week schedule. On the men's side, they train in the early afternoons. So they will be, depending upon the day, because I also have to teach a course here. So that kind of adjusts my practice schedule to build upon that. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, that'll be 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoons, and then Tuesday, Thursday, it'll be after my class finishes. So that would be 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoons. So for them, they have a little bit more of a time block to work around when it comes to classes. But they're able to obviously pick up a night class if they want. Online classes and hybrid classes here are super popular, and are definitely options that a lot of our players pursue just to, build upon the balance of things, but definitely gives them time for part-time work, whether on campus or off campus. A good amount of our players have interest in coaching, so getting them, involved in working with local youth clubs is an important thing. And I think making sure that they're giving back to the game as well is always a positive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about the coaching part of the roster too. We talked about the recruiting and the numbers on that, but talk to me about your staff and maybe what other staff are in the athletic department that help out with either team.
Yeah. So something that was really helpful, I think, for me in the transition of taking over the women was two of my assistants I had with the men in the fall definitely had interest in working with both. One had primary experience on the youth girls side, so naturally bringing him on I think made a lot of sense. So he'll take over as associate head women's coach. And then our goalkeeper coach for the men, who also does a ton of social media stuff for us, which is fantastic and super resourceful in how we do things. He'll work with the goalkeepers on the women's side as well. And then I've hired, or in the hiring process, of one specific assistant coach for both men and one for the women as well. So feel really good about how the staffs are coming along. Their experience is great. They're as a whole, you can obviously probably tell, right? I'm on the younger side when it comes to college soccer coaching, and my assistant coaching staff is going to be the same way. So most of my assistants are anywhere between 22 and 28 years old. And I think that brings its own challenges, but also brings its own opportunities and benefits, right? I was a young assistant that was hungry and looking for every opportunity I could to build experience and, be able to try new things and be able to build my resume for future jobs. And that's what I want to do as well with my staff. And nothing against more experienced coaches, but I think those that are younger and maybe don't have families, I have a young family myself, so I need coaches that are going to be around, that don't have a ton of commitments outside of things, that they're going to be able to, really use this as an opportunity to go on and coach somewhere else, right? So if they're with me for a year and they get a new job, I find that to be one of the more prideful things of what I'm doing here. So I think that the staff itself are really good. I feel good about both sides. Like I said, within the department, the athletic academic advisors are definitely someone that we lean upon to help, keep these players on track and get them on to the next thing. Naturally, we're going to have players that are looking to transfer to UW-Madison for school. We're going to have players that are here that are going to be done with after 2 years because they have a specific program that they then enter the workforce. And then we're going to have student athletes that come here with the idea of transferring on to a 4-year school. And I think that's been a definite thing that we're striving to do, is bring players in here that have plans beyond Madison College, and can we help them get there? And that's where those advisors are great, and working alongside our staff to make sure that our players are getting the support they need in order to achieve what they want to do.
No, that's great. Well, what about you as the head man here? Talk to me about your coaching style of play for the teams you're coaching.
Yeah, I think the important thing for me is, I want to make sure that I have that my players have my ear, right? That they can give me their thoughts, but at the end of the day, I'm still the one that makes the final decisions. I'm still the one that's going to determine, who's going to play, how we're going to line up, etc. Make the adjustments, obviously, in game. But I also want them to feel like they have, some sort of say, right? They have some real meaning within the program. So I think my style would be, on game day, I'm definitely going to be one that's going to be involved, that's going to be, animated in some ways, that's going to get into the games. But at the end of the day, I think training is where it obviously gets done. So we're going to have, a specific setup of what training looks like each day, having the staff that we have, being able to give them some autonomy to be able to show, that they have worth within the staff. So our players feel like that our assistants have a voice and that they have meaning within it, and not they're just showing up and picking up cones, right? Or, doing the little things that the head coach doesn't want to do, right? I want this to be a staff and more so that excuse me, than a head coach and assistants, right? So our trainings are going to be, pretty formatted where, an assistant maybe is running the warm up phase when it comes to the dynamic stuff as well as the technical stuff. Then either myself or another assistant's going to do the possession, that leads into a topic that then maybe we bring out in a larger sided picture, right? So each day is going to have some sort of focus of what we need, especially in preseason. We'll build upon all areas of how we want to play. But, for me as a coach, I think it depends upon the personnel. So, if you looked at our season in this past fall on the men's side, we played for about the first half of the season in one way. And I think we just looked at ourselves and said, we maybe don't have the players in order to play the way we want to play. So how do we get the most out of what we have? Right. So as a staff and as our leaders within the team, we talked and made an adjustment. And I think you could see as our season came to a close, we were playing some of the best soccer we had all year. And it was a shame with how things kind of finished, but we were definitely in a place of contention and feel really good about, where we finished and where we're heading. So for me, if I had my ideal players, I would classify, a system of play being, a build out of the back, but it's not building in the back, right? We want to get it as forward as possible. So I would say it's, ball on the ground, but it's also a vertical style, right? So can we play forward passes that get us going at our opponent's goal as quickly as possible? If we can score goals in 4 passes or less, that's how I would prefer it. But if it takes more than that, fantastic. As long as we're not, putting ourselves in dangerous positions, turning the ball over unnecessarily, giving up, dangerous just counterattacks, that sort of thing, right? That's something I try to avoid. And ultimately, I want my players to be able to make decisions based upon what they see, not what they've been programmed to do in training. So that's you know, trying to build upon that in my first year with the men. I think we're in a really good place going forward. And the women, we had, a number of individual training sessions really this spring in small group settings. So building upon that in the early stages this fall will be very important to try to build our identity and style of play with them as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, Coach, appreciate the time. Got one last question for you. Uh, for folks that are going through this college recruiting process, if you had one piece of advice for them, what would that be?
That's a great question. I think for me, I went through it as a player naturally, looked at a ton of different schools at various levels, and ultimately came down to I think the fit, right? And people have mentioned that all over, right? I think you kind of know once you're finally there. And for me, it was probably at a school that I didn't expect it to be. I had connections to UW Whitewater previously, and when I first went there, I didn't expect to really enjoy my experience on campus. But I went into it with obviously a relative open mind and really fell in love with the place. Got to know my coach really well. Got to know the players on the team really well. The academics programs there were exactly what I needed, and I actually had a meeting with the athletic director while I was there once. So I think that was, just for me, an opportunity to get a full glimpse at a place that going in, I had no expectation that I was going to go there, and it was the right place for me. I had a fantastic 4 years there. So now when I'm here, in bringing players onto campus and showing them what this can be, I want them to look back and say, yes, that was 100% worth it. I'm glad I went there. That's a place that I look back on and have fond memories, have a connection to, and want to support going forward. Right. So my advice for for those going through this process is try to find a place where you can see that being the case, right? That you can see a connection to what would be your alma mater, right? And if you can feel that, you're likely going to really understand what that means, and it's going to match up with your priorities.
For sure. Couldn't agree more. Well, thanks, Coach. Really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck with both teams, and
Thank you.
hopefully you continue to grow and get better on both sides of them. All right. So really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it.